welcome back to another edition of Unpopular Opinions. I'm Chuck Taylor. I'm joined by my co-host, Casey Cobb. Casey, say what's up.
Hey, what's going on, man? I like the intro music.
Oh, thank you very much. A little Rolling Stones, Can You Hear Me Knocking? To get us kicked off on college football weekend. This is conference championship weekend. We had the Big Five, the Power Five conference championships, along with a couple other exciting championships. We're going to recap these real quick for you. Give you our thoughts on the results and how the games went, what they revealed about some of these teams going into bowl season and the college football playoff. And then we're going to talk about the college football playoff selection for the CFP, the top four teams that were selected to compete for the title. And, we might hit on some exciting coaching carousel questions and answers. But with that, let's get into it. Casey, let's start with the Power Five, and then we'll get into just mentioning a little bit about these smaller conference championships. But the first one was played on Friday, actually. It was the Pac-12 championship game, Stanford and USC. Did you watch that game? What'd you think about it? What did you see from that one?
Yeah, I did watch a little bit of that, and it was an entertaining game. You know, it was the last chance for Love to try to do something to boost his Heisman hopes, and, I tell you, that was a really gutsy move on the part of Stanford to go for the touchdown right there at the end of the game. They could have tied with a field goal and gone into overtime, but I can't knock them for trying to knock it out of the park right there. I got to give my hats off to them for that.
Yeah, that's true. It was a very exciting game. It was back and forth. USC kind of got up a little early on them, and Stanford came back with a vengeance. Made it a great game. Final 31-28, USC taking home the Pac-12 title. But, Sam Darnold showed up, had a great game, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jones had a great game for USC. Both Jones and Love, the running backs, were huge in this game. Really exciting game to watch. Really good to kick it off, that Friday night game, before we got into the quote-unquote games that matter. Neither of these teams were going to be in the CFP, but they made it very interesting, for sure.
And interesting, it's USC's first Pac-12 championship since 2008, so they've gone almost 10 years without a championship.
Really? Did not know that. Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, they, as high as they were with what's his name in Seattle, Pete Carroll, the Pete Carroll era of USC, you really didn't see them falling like this, but maybe that's the road for Alabama, when if Nick Saban leaves, and I don't know, we'll see. But USC was once the most dominant power in all of college football, and now they're, no titles in 10 years, but good win for USC there. But like I said, that game didn't really necessarily matter for the CFP. But Saturday had a host of games. A lot of these, pretty much every spot came down to how these games fell. The one for sure was the ACC championship game. I think this was the one where winner or loser, they were gonna move on to the CFP. Clemson dominant over Miami. What'd you see from this one?
Clemson really took it to them. I thought that Miami might give up a little bit more of a fight there, and try to keep the turnover chain going along and keep that going. But Kelly Bryant, really played well. And Clemson just came out there and did what they needed to do. They made Miami look silly. And I'm okay with that. I'm of course personally not a huge Miami fan, but I do like Dabo Swinney, so it's kind of cool to see them back in it again and to see them really dominate a Miami team that a lot of people were thinking were really good. I think I'd mentioned before I thought they were a little bit overrated, but Clemson pretty much took care of them from start to end.
Concern of Miami. A lot of people were saying early in the year, well, they didn't play anybody. They play in a pretty weak ACC with Florida State falling off the map, and they came out and they beat Virginia Tech. And we said, how good is Virginia Tech? And they beat Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, I mean, Notre Dame we thought was really good, but how good's Notre Dame? And then they end the season with a loss to Pitt. And I think a lot of people, especially Miami fans, kind of looked at that loss to Pitt and said, whoa, okay, last game of the year, you've got everything to play for. You've got all this momentum. You've got, like I said, literally everything to play for, a playoff spot, an ACC championship, and you go out and lose to Pitt. I think that kind of raised a lot of red flags for Miami fans. And then going in against Clemson, and I've said this for weeks, I really think Clemson's the real deal. I had them behind some people in the past couple, when we've done our rankings in the past, but I thought Clemson was legitimate, and they proved it against Miami, and this was the last test I needed for Clemson. I think Clemson's best team in the country. I think they're worthy of that number one spot, and they really proved it against Miami.
Absolutely, they did. They really did. And yeah, Miami, we talked about them playing Notre Dame, and really is Notre Dame that good? Really was Florida State that good? So, they really don't think they're playing against great competition all year long. And when it finally came down to it, to play a team that really has it all together. I know we're going to talk about this a little more when we get to top four, but just a precursor. Yeah, I think Clemson has the overall package. Offense, defense, special teams. I think they're the most complete team in there, but I don't want to jump ahead into our next discussion.
No, yeah, I agree, but yeah, we will get to that. Kelly Bryant, very impressive. Dabo Sweeney, that Clemson team is legitimate, and they're going to make a real push to defend that national championship. But moving on, we'll get to the other unexciting game of the top four conference championships that didn't matter. Baker Mayfield came out, and Baker Mayfield, if he didn't already have the Heisman locked up, he definitely does now. 4 touchdowns, 243 yards. The Big 12 championship was not very exciting. TCU scoring all 17 points in the second quarter, but after that, Oklahoma rode to dominance. This was kind of a letdown for me because my whole life I've been told by my dad and father figures, sports figures, that defense wins championships, and it didn't today. What, Casey? Why did the defense not prevail? What was it? Is Oklahoma too good? What's the answer?
Oklahoma's offense, arguably right now, is the best offense in the country. They are really on a hot streak. Baker Mayfield is playing lights out. They're going to have to run into, and we'll see how it goes with the playoff, but they're going to have to run into a good defense, if they're going to be stopped. I mean, they're like a freight train. I was very disappointed by this too. I thought TCU's defense was going to be able to stymie them a little bit, but they didn't have a chance.
They didn't. And I thought Gary Patterson, real quick, I was just going to say, I thought Gary Patterson at halftime would make some adjustments, and he did not. I mean, the 17 points in the third quarter, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. I wanted to touch base on, you and I had a discussion about, I talked to you about the Big 12 championship game, and, I was like, well, just playing 1 and 2, right? Is that really a championship? But the point that you brought up to me was that they needed that championship so they could get more credibility going into the college football playoffs. And I think you're right. Having OU play that final game, they may have gotten in anyway, but playing that game against a ranked team, I think really gives them more credibility and just helps to assert their place in the college football playoff system.
It does, and it definitely did, and I think it'll be even more helpful when the Big 12 returns to kind of dominance. I don't know if they'll, it's hard to say right now if they'll return to where they once were, but, TCU is a little bit weaker right now than they normally are. They've had really strong teams in the past. Baylor fell off the map with the Art Briles
they did.
Incident. Texas is still trying to find some traction. So OU kind of owns this conference right now. So right now, the game doesn't mean as much as it can or will in the coming years when the Big 12 bounces back, or how much they bounce back. We'll have to see. But
yeah, I'd like to see the
yeah.
Big 12. I'd really like to see them expand and get into where they're having two conferences again. You know, I think that would just make them a stronger conference. And you know, I like to see different divisions, kind of like the other conferences have, with a champion, you know, of each division playing each other. But we'll see if they get to that point one of these days. I hope they do. I really do.
Yeah, man, I would be in support of that too. And there have been talks about some teams moving in the past few years, but I'm just glad they took that first step and put the championship game back in there, because it really does strengthen the Big 12's chances. But the final there is 41-17. Oklahoma took care of business. Sorry, the final in the Clemson game was 38-3. Clemson over Miami. But moving on from the Big 12 and Baker Mayfield's obvious Heisman season in his redshirt senior year, we've got two games. One of them was I guess they were both surprises, but one a little bit more than the other, I think. Georgia and Auburn in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
I had a lot of faith in Georgia the whole year, and I kind of lost it when they lost to Auburn the first time. But I really do think that Georgia's a solid team, and they came out and they really proved it against Auburn. I mean, you know, you could say what you want about it being a rematch, but the facts are Auburn has 3 losses at the end of the year, and Georgia is 1-1 against them, and that's the only loss Georgia has. So Jake Fromm and company took care of business. What did you see from this one?
You know, I think they made the adjustments they needed to make instead of trying to run the ball right up the gut like they were doing in the previous matchup. They started running to the side, using their speed to get around the corners to gain yards. Also, you know, they shut down Stidham, 16 for 32, 145 yards, 1 touchdown. You know, he's really been dynamite all year long. They shut him down. Kerryon Johnson, 13 carries, 44 yards. Their defense stepped up. No, not going to get it done. Their defense stepped up in a big way, and Fromm, you know, for being a freshman, kid's playing like a senior. He really
impressive.
is. I was really surprised. You know, I've been pretty high on Auburn all year long. So, you know, I thought it would be a tough matchup, but I really did think Auburn was gonna win this. So, yeah. Auburn's been so strong all year long, and Georgia just came out and did what they need to do and took them down.
They did. They had an impressive second half. Auburn only that first quarter touchdown. Nothing after that. And I said when these teams were going to play the first time, or it was either this team's or another one of Georgia's matchups, but I think it was this game, I said that I was really impressed with Georgia's defense. I thought Georgia's defense was going to come out and stop Stidham, and they didn't that first game. They didn't. They came out, they disappointed. Kerryon Johnson went off, Stidham went off, and this was more of the game that I was expecting to see the first time around. And Georgia made the adjustments like you said, and they gave the people what they were expecting to see the first time. 421 yards of offense, so they got it. They were able to move the ball as well, but that defense was very impressive from Georgia. Very solid.
Yeah. Watch out for Fromm. I tell you what, you know, next few years, being a freshman, you know, we're gonna have to watch him in the SEC for 3 more years. I think he's only going to get better.
Yeah, he's very impressive, and you know he's very, very calm, very cool and collected. I mean, Georgia kind of came out of nowhere this season, and a lot of it has been him and DeAndre Swift. But you know, Jake Fromm's been very solid, and yeah, he's definitely going to be one to look out for. Heisman hopefuls the next few years, and very solid quarterback.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that one ended 28-7 Georgia's way. They punched their ticket. So this next one is the Big Ten championship game. Probably the most build-up around this game because if it went the way that it did, we didn't know how it would pan out for the voters. And this one, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Ohio State coming away with a 27-21 victory. What did you see from this one?
It's a tough game all the way around, you know. I'm sitting there looking at it, and Barrett he played well when he needed to, still had a couple of turnovers like you and I talked about. He can be a bit streaky, And, Wisconsin's quarterback had 2 interceptions as well. But what really sticks out to me here is Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, 17 carries, 174 yards. They just kept pounding Wisconsin. The game did not disappoint. Typical Big Ten battle, hard fought in the trenches, had some spectacular plays. And, I think Ohio State was the better team. But, Wisconsin, I'll tell you, Wisconsin, people doubted them, thought they were soft. But I really think that they played well against Ohio State. They really did a good job. It was a close game. So not quite as weak as people might have thought they were, but still not quite strong enough to take on Ohio State and Urban Meyer.
They did. Wisconsin did, and they played a little bit timid in the beginning, but I think after that first quarter, they started to play with a little bit more confidence. But I think what killed Wisconsin in this game is the big plays. They gave up too many big plays. JT Barrett had, several passes of 40-plus yards. Out of their 3 touchdowns or whatever it was, I think 2 or all 3 of them were big pass plays. That you cannot give up those big-time plays and give Ohio State that momentum.
Yeah, big plays really spelled the end for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wisconsin technically won the turnover battle 3-2, but besides that pick 6, Wisconsin's offense really didn't make Ohio State pay for a lot of those mistakes. They just, Hornibrook had 2 interceptions, and Wisconsin just didn't, they didn't look up to par. I think this was a legitimate win for Ohio State. I don't think that Ohio State lucked into this one. I don't think that, it was a matter of a few early plays were enough to, support them the whole game. I think they legitimately went out there and proved they were the better team than Wisconsin.
Yeah, they sure did. And pretty cool to see J.T. Barrett go through arthroscopic surgery after last week and then come out there and play a game. Like, oh my gosh, that's pretty amazing. I couldn't imagine having somebody work on my knee and then going out there and playing a full football game and playing like he did. I would have thought that would have affected him more than it did. So, pretty tough guy.
Yeah, the announcers made a big point of that. They mentioned it several times, and that was a huge backstory was JT Barrett, and he played fairly well. He had some big plays and made a couple mistakes, but no, JT Barrett definitely put them in a good position. So with that, Ohio State taking it 27-21. There, your Power 5 championship games. There were 2 more championship games, the Mountain West and the American Athletic Conference. The Mountain West was Boise State beating Fresno State 17-14. I don't really have much to say about this game. I didn't watch this game. Were there any important notes, anything that you saw in this game you want to talk about?
No, I didn't pay attention to that one either.
Okay, yeah.
I think I flipped past it. Yeah, I flipped past it for a minute, and then I was like, I think they're playing in Boise State, right? Were they?
Yes, Fresno State and Boise State.
Yeah. I think they're on that blue turf. That blue turf just drives me nuts. I can't.
Yeah, it is pretty annoying, but no, yeah, it didn't really get up the nerve to watch that game, but Boise State did take that home 17-14. But the other game,
I wish I'd watched. No, I wish I'd watched the other game.
You didn't watch the AAC.
No, I wish I had it.
Ooh,
goodness.
I did not watch. I kept up with it the first about 3 quarters, but I watched most of the 4th quarter and overtime. And man, Scott Frost did a heck of a curtain call at UCF. This one was UCF against Memphis. UCF came out gunslinging early, and Memphis made a triumphant comeback, forced overtime in the waning minutes, and UCF sealed it with a 62-55 win. Classic college football there, high scoring. But this was Scott Frost's curtain call as he announced that he's going to Nebraska, his alma mater, to fill that head coaching role. But did you see any highlights from this game, or did you watch any of it?
Well, what I saw was, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this might have been the most yards in any football game played. We're looking at, I think they had over 1,000. I mean, there's 471 yards thrown by by Ferguson with Memphis and 494 yards thrown with Milton for UCF. You know, talk about video game football. I wish I'd watched it. It looks like it was a lot of fun. You know, maybe next year I'll pay more attention to it. But, you know, kind of cool to see UCF undefeated.
Yep, completed their undefeated season, 12-0, 8-0 in conference. Yep. Yeah. Like you said, each team was over 700 total yards. The turnover battle was 4-2 Memphis is away. Both quarterbacks over 400 yards, one with 5 touchdowns, the other one with 4.
Crazy.
Both starting running backs had over 100 yards, over 200-yard receiver. I mean, just unreal. But that's why we love college football. Sometimes it's not always the 28-21 games. Sometimes it's the 62-55 games that you just kind of, you go, okay, well, you know, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
But,
and Scott Frost going to Nebraska, so they'll probably build a castle for him up there. You know, he's Nebraska loves him from his days playing in some national championships with them.
That's true, and it's sad to see him go. I mean, so many UCF fans wanted to see him stay after that, you know, undefeated year, but it was a great year for UCF. They captured the AAC conference championship. They'll be in a very good bowl game headed out. But
yeah, they will.
With that being said, I kind of wanted to. Well, we'll hit that on the end. I was going to kind of move that into a little bit of coaching questions, but we'll save that for the end. Okay. Real quick, we will go into the college football playoff Final Four. The Final Four in order. It is number 1, Clemson, number 2, Oklahoma, number 3, Georgia, and number 4, Alabama. Ohio State gets snubbed. That is the headline. Casey, tell me what you think about these top 4.
I think Clemson deserves to be there. As I said earlier, they seem to be the most complete football game. They've got defense, they've got offense, they've got a quarterback. I think they're the complete package, and I think they should be number 1. OU, you know, I can't complain about that. I mean, number 2, I think that spot is perfect for them, especially after winning the Big 12 championship with their dynamite offense. Georgia, I think Georgia deserves that as well. You know, they went out there and beat Auburn. They're looking good. They got the SEC championship. I think that's great. Now we get to the fun stuff. Alabama and Ohio State. You know, I really felt, and I went back and looked at some of these games they played, okay? So bear with me for just a minute. You know, Alabama, 11-1, 7-1 in conference. They beat number 3, Florida State, 24-7. You know, back when we thought Florida State was the real deal, and they turned out not to be. They go on to beat LSU 24-10. You know, not a super big victory, and LSU got beat by Troy, right? So we're looking at them having a pretty bad loss on the record, and then we're looking at them losing to Auburn, which I think was a good legit loss, a 26-14 victory that was pretty hard fought, and you know, I thought Auburn was a tough opponent. So they got a number 3 that really wasn't a number 3. They got a number 19. They beat a number 19, which, you know, arguably LSU could be in there around the top 25, and then Auburn. So you got one really good, you know, a good win against an opponent and a good loss, but that other one against Florida State really doesn't hold much water. You know, then we go and we look at Ohio State losing to then number 5 OU, and we see where OU is at. Yeah, it was kind of a rough loss, but OU's a good team. Then we see them beating a number 2 Penn State by 1 point, and Penn State's still in the top 25, so that's a decent victory. They did lose against unranked Iowa 55-24. That was pretty ugly. They beat a number 12 Michigan State 48-3, spanked them, and they beat Wisconsin at number 4 27-21 in the championship. So when I look at these, you know, I'm thinking
Real quick, they also won their rivalry game against Michigan. That's a tough game to win.
That's right. They beat Michigan too. You know, I'm sitting there going, okay, their victories are better to me than Alabama's victories, and they played an extra game as well, beating Auburn. I'm sorry, I'm getting my people mixed up. They played extra game in the championship, beating number 4 Wisconsin. So it really looks like the playoff committee was looking at total number of losses, plus they really put a lot into this, losing to unranked Iowa, you know, by that margin. So, you know, I mean, I can't say that Alabama doesn't necessarily deserve to be there, but at the same time, I kind of felt like Ohio State has a little bit of better resume. I don't know. What do you think?
That's fair, and I kind of go back and forth on this because there's a thing on ESPN. There was I can't remember. Oh, it was that guy Booger that used to play for LSU. Booger, I can't remember his name, but he's a commentator on. Yeah. So he was on ESPN, and he said last night, I think, or maybe it was this morning, before they released the playoff rankings, he said, look, if you could bet your salary on either Alabama or Ohio State advancing to the championship, who are you putting your salary on? And all the people at the column said Alabama. And he said, then why are we arguing about this? And that's a very good point. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that Alabama doesn't deserve to be here, but in my mind, and I asked you this question last night, what matters more to you? Because we already saw what matters more to the committee. What matters more to you, bad losses or big wins?
Big wins.
You think big wins holds more weight?
I think so. I think a big win, against tough teams should hold more weight. I do.
I agree with you. And case in point, Clemson and Oklahoma. Clemson is 12-1. They lost to a terrible Syracuse team. Right. Oklahoma is 12-1 and lost to a good Iowa State team, I guess. I mean, they didn't finish ranked. They're not that good.
Yeah.
They have 2 losses against terrible teams, yet they're number 1 and 2 because they proved themselves against big teams. They showed up when it mattered. Ohio State lost to a not very good Iowa team, although Iowa gave someone else a good game. I can't remember. But they lost to Iowa, and then they lost to Oklahoma, who's a very good team. But they also beat, like you said, Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin. Alabama, what is Alabama's win? What is it, LSU? Is that what we're going off of?
That's it.
They lose to Auburn, and they pretty much get embarrassed by it. It was 26-14, but Auburn was in complete control of that game. You watched that game. Auburn was in complete control of that game, dominated Alabama in that game. So, I mean, you got Mississippi State, who they took down to the wire. You've got LSU, and that's enough to trump Ohio State?
Yeah, I just don't. I don't like it. I don't think it's right. And you're not going to talk about this in another podcast about our thoughts about these matchups. But I'd feel better if Ohio State was playing. I like their chances better in the playoff than I do Alabama, to be honest with you. Shoot, Alabama had a tough game against A&M.
They did. They did, and I've said all year, this isn't the same Alabama team as we've seen the last 5 years. They're very good. I'm not saying they're bad, but this isn't the same Alabama.
I don't think so. They don't have a huge statement win. They thought Florida State was a huge statement win. Maybe they're giving them credit for them being number 3 at the time, but when you look back on it, no, it's not. Not a big win.
It's not.
Yeah.
No, and I honestly, I think Clemson goes in there and runs it against Alabama. We'll get into that later when we talk about bowl games, but I think Clemson runs over Alabama, to be perfectly honest. But at the same time, I think Clemson would beat Ohio State too, so I don't really think it matters. I think Clemson's going to the championship either way. But I don't have a problem. I don't have a big problem with Alabama being in there. but with all things considered, Big Ten champion, like you have the championship, you came out, you proved yourself against multiple teams. I'd be pretty pissed if I was Ohio State.
I would be too, and I think that gives even more credence to your suggestion, the 16 playoff system, you know, because then you just put in the champion of each of the Power 5 conferences is in there. You don't have any of this argument. Of course, there's probably going to be one more person whining about the last spot, but you got it covered there. Power 5 conferences, then one at-large bid, you know. And I think that's perfect. The more I've thought about that after you told me that, I think that makes the most sense for them going forward. I'd like to see them go to a 16 playoff.
With the Big Ten being left out, we will have a 6 or 18 playoff by 2020. I guarantee you.
Hot prediction. Hot prediction right there.
That's it. The Big Ten is pissed. They are pissed. Ohio State is pissed.
Deservedly so. Yeah, I was going and reading some of their blogs on, reading some Ohio State blogs. Yeah, they're not happy campers.
Yeah, and the Big Ten's the number one in viewer rating of any conference in the college football. The Big Ten, number one, and they're not having a single team in the playoff.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Yep, and that is going to hurt. And that, the committee's love for Alabama trumps all, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Are they really, because I kind of think of Alabama and Ohio State on the same par as far as, kind of getting that, getting special treatment because of history and because of who they are. I kind of thought Ohio State was on the same bar, but maybe Alabama does get more, Nick Saban, once again.
That's what it is. Very interesting from the College Football Playoff Committee. It's going to make for a very exciting bowl season and playoff season. Nick Saban will have to prove it. I mean, he gets blown out against Clemson. They're going to be even more upset in Ohio State.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they really will. Hey, maybe they'll give us a call and put us on the committee. We can help them out.
Maybe. I'm hoping for that call. I really am. I would be on that in a heartbeat. That would be pretty cool.
That'd be fun. I'd love to go and just sit in. I wish they could, record it, right? Record that like a TV show and actually give that out so people can see the discussion that goes on behind closed doors. I think that'd be interesting.
Oh man, that would go viral so quick.
Yeah.
I mean, the mockery of it, and oh man. Yeah, I don't know. College Football Playoff Committee and those voters are some of the most loved and hated people. I mean, they got a lot of pressure on them. And
but I tell you, it sure makes for good conversation. Ever since they've started doing these playoffs, I mean, it's really entertaining to just kind of sit here and think about it and talk about it. I love it,
It does, man. College football is the best. I don't understand how you can't love college football.
That's right.
But real quick, before we go, we had several big higher stories come out of college football, but one kind of trumps all of them.
Yeah.
One kind of trumps all of them. Texas A&M, your alma mater, was really the first the first team that I can think of that pulled a Power 5 conference former national championship coach from one Power 5 conference team, very formidable Florida State, in the ACC team, to another Power 5 SEC team. I mean, he didn't get fired. He left on his own accord to go from one Power 5 team to another Power 5 team. What are your thoughts on Mr. Jimbo Fisher heading to College Station?
Well, first off, I got to tell you, I really have always been in Kevin Sumlin's camp. I just like the way he coached. I like the way he presented himself. I like the way he ran his program. I wanted nothing more than for Kevin Sumlin to succeed. But at the end of the day, you look at what we're trying to do, and they just cannot beat the big boys in the SEC. And after donating my piddly $50 a year to buy my half a brick in Kyle Field, right? I want to see a little more. So, it's a little bittersweet. I hate to see Kevin Sumlin go. I have no problem with seeing Noel Mazzoni go because I'm so sick and tired of bubble screens and the same plays over and over again. The offense was pretty uninspired, and they always kind of fell apart down the stretch. So I'm excited to get some new blood in there. From what I hear, Jimbo Fisher can be kind of difficult to deal with, but he's going to A&M where, good Lord, you got regents who are out there buying tanks, and apparently we have boatloads of money to throw at somebody. So, it's a big coup for them to get a big name. I think Jimbo Fisher is probably in the top 5 coaches that are active right now. I hope we don't have. I hope he runs a cleaner program than he did at Florida State. That is my only concern because I don't want to see a program fall apart and have people come in there who are not being supervised. But I think that he will have some success. Do I think it will be right away? No, I don't. I think it'll take 1 to 3 years. And then got to have some confidence on his part to say, hey, I'm going to leave a conference that, really historically for the last, 5 or 6 years has been pretty much Clemson and nobody else except for maybe Florida State popping up from time to time. So he's going to a conference where he's going to be going head to head against Nick Saban, and we'll see who Arkansas gets, and we'll see who Tennessee gets after they botch their job. But yeah, he's going to be playing against tough competition all year long. So I got to applaud his confidence, and I do hope that it turns out well. All I want before I die is to see A&M win a national championship, and this may be our best shot at doing it. Well, I suppose I want some other things before I die, but that's one thing I'd like to see.
Yeah,
you got to see Texas win, all right? So you're good. Now we need to give A&M a little bit of love.
I did, and it was confidence, and it was 75 million reasons.
Phew.
What do you think? What do you think about the contract, real quick?
Good Lord, that is a lot of money.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed for 10 years? No, you can't say no to that. I can't blame him for taking that. A lot of Florida State people were upset, but somebody came up and offered you that. Would you say no? Nah, I don't.
No, it's his retirement fund right there. 75 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
I don't think all these people are saying, well, what's to stop him from not trying and going out and getting 2 wins a year and getting fired after 3 years and getting 75 million in his pocket? I don't think it's gonna be anything like that.
I don't think so.
I think the risk is there for A&M, but nobody goes out and does that. Nobody's gonna botch their entire life. Their why can't I think of the word?
He's not going to sit back on his laurels. He's going to be working for it.
Yeah, no, he's not going to botch his entire. I can't think of the word that I'm trying. Anyways,
golden egg, pot at the end of the rainbow.
His entire what's behind him, his past, his legacy, entire legacy. He's not going to botch his entire legacy just because he's got guaranteed money. So it's not going to be anything like that. I think there's a little bit of risk on A&M's end with guaranteeing all that money, but it's not anything like people like, oh, why does he have to give a crap? And no, nobody does that. So.
And one thing else I got to point out is, what? It's nice to see A&M not mess around with hiring a coach like they did back with, with Sherman and some of these other colleges like Tennessee. Good Lord, they messed up.
Tennessee is in a world of hurt right now.
They went out and said, "This is who we want. Let's go make it happen." Period.
They did, and I really, I applaud them for that. They're going chips all in, and I think if A&M is going to win in the SEC and they're going to be a team that competes, because a lot of people, including myself, have kind of criticized the move to the SEC because they are pretty much the same thing that they were in the Big 12. If they're going to be in that realm, these are the kind of moves they've got to make, and we'll see if it pans out. We'll see if it pans out, but this is what they needed to do. Kevin Sumlin was a great hire, And I think he did a great job. I think he's a great coach. He's a great guy. He's really good recruiter. But Jimbo Fisher is A&M saying, okay, we're not here to be second, third, fourth to the dinner bowl behind Bama, LSU, Auburn, etc. We're in the SEC to compete.
Yeah.
And, that's what a lot of the, A&M Aggie faithful and alumni and et cetera have wanted to see from them. So, no, yeah, that's a huge move by A&M.
I think so. Thanks for humoring me with A&M talk today.
No problem. That's a big story. Some other big coaching carousel stories, just run through them. Chip Kelly to UCLA, Dan Mullen to Florida, Dan Mullen to Florida, Scott Frost to Nebraska, and Herm Edwards reportedly taking the Arizona State job. We're just getting into the coaching carousel. Tennessee and Arkansas still looking for a coach. Florida State still looking for a coach. UCF, one last thing before we go, UCF reportedly wants Kevin Sumlin.
Oh, really?
They do. The UCF wants Kevin Sumlin. So it could be potentially UCF and Kevin Sumlin and USF and Charlie Strong.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, you know what? Good on Charlie. I'd love to see him go there.
Well, Charlie's already at USF.
No, I mean to go to I thought you were talking about him going to, like, Florida State.
No, USF, South Florida.
Yeah,
sorry,
USF.
It could be Sumlin at UCF and Strong at USF is already at USF.
Playing each other. Yeah, that would be pretty cool. I wish, and I'm totally getting off on the sidebar, I just want to make 2 points here. I really, really wish that Texas had given Charlie one more year. I really do, I know losing to Kansas was rough, but I think if he'd have had, I don't know, I think he'd have had a good year this year. I just have a feeling. I like him.
I think the change needed to be made. And I'm a huge Charlie Strong supporter. I love the guy. He's a great person and
really
an awesome person. What he did for the players and going into the homes and making those guys better men, that is huge. And that, he was like a father to a lot of those players. And Tom Herman is very much like that too. But, I really felt for Charlie. But you can't. There was no improvement. It's 6-7, 5-7, 5-7, and there's got to be at least a little bit of improvement. Losing to Kansas was absolutely
abysmal,
absolutely unacceptable. And and I think he's at a much better place at USF. If he gets promoted to like a Florida or a Florida State or a Miami in the next 10 years, great on him. I'm supporting him at South Florida. I'm glad he had a great year. I wish he could have. I had a little bit better year. I wish he could have beat you at UCF. Maybe he would have been in that conference championship game. But I think he's at a great place at USF. He knows Florida recruiting. He loves to recruit Florida, and that's a great place for him.
Yeah, it is. My last point on the coaching is, I think Chip Kelly is going to be very successful at UCLA. I look at them, him getting them on track like he did with Oregon, unless he gets into trouble. But at the same time, those Pac-12 teams, and with his offense is always good, but his defense, doesn't always stand up to it. But I'm kind of interested to see him, back with his offense in the college ranks again.
That's true, and the Pac-12 is perfect for him. He loved it at Oregon. That's where he lives and dies. The A&M rumors and some of these other rumors, Florida rumors, that's just not. The SEC is not a place for a Chip Kelly.
No, not at all.
So I think he made a good life decision, coaching decision by going to UCLA. Yeah, I think that'll be a pretty good fit.
Yeah, I think so too. Cool, man.
Well, so with that, before we go, Casey, any last questions, comments, concerns, ideas, philosophies on life, anything?
Just remember, it's not the events of life that disturb us, but what we make of them. That's my helpful tip for the day.
There you go. You heard it here. Great words of advice from the briefcase. And guys, with that, we're going to get out of here. We love having you guys listening. We're sorry about the delay in podcasts. We will try to be on our game next week and for the weeks to come. Signing off for Casey Cobb, I'm Chuck Taylor. This is Unpopular Opinions, and we will see you next week.
Good night.
Awesome.